I wished I had not come home. I was enjoying myself at Trixie's. She wasn't the best looking, but she was well endowed, and she knew how to pleasure a man who craves crossdressers. Not only that, she brought home a succession of crossdressers and admirers from the Queen's Head, the local LBG-friendly pub where Trixie picked me up all those months ago. Her cross-dressing friends added spice and variety, and I could swap stories with her other admirers over an ale. But it came to an end. She kicked me out of her home. With trepidation, I let myself back into my home. To my surprise, instead of my dear wife Rose, it was Kate, the lover I left behind, who came rushing into the hall. She was the most natural crossdresser I had ever come across. She was a management trainee at work, she was seconded to the admin office, and I was her supervisor. I never knew she was a crossdresser until I accessed her tax and national insurance records. Then imagine my surprise when I discovered that not only was she a he, but also the boss's son. I decided to blackmail Kate. I knew that disclosing that the boss's daughter was her son would be deeply embarrassing and could be used by a competitor to commercial advantage. Going out with me would be a small price to pay for my silence. So much so, I was emboldened enough to take her home on our first date. I sent my wife, Rose, to the spare bedroom to make room for Kate in our bed. That night was wonderful, so I decided to ask her to move in. I didn't tell Kate that Rose was my wife. She was just someone I shared the house with. Within a day or so, Rose had moved out to stay with her sister. I lived with Kate for a while. She was wonderful. That was the problem. She was too much like Rose, a caring, loving partner. I wanted a more edgy sexual relationship. When she saw me, Kate's face turned angry. "Lynn, I didn't expect to see you back here. We thought you had skedaddled after my mum found out that you had dumped Rose for me." "It was all a misunderstanding," I replied, knowing full well it was a lie. "I'm not interested in hearing your excuses. Your things are in the spare bedroom. If you have nowhere else to go, you can stay in there until I've had a chance to talk to Rose. You remember her? She's your wife." "Oh," I thought. Kate found out. "You know Rose?" "Yes, she came here, her home, to see you, and discovered that you had gone. I was still here waiting for you to come home or at least get in touch." Rose and I had always got on well at the office, so I invited her in. I could hardly send her away, and we ended up having a good long talk. We discovered we had much in common, including you, as a lying and cheating husband and lover. "I've come back to be with you, Kate. I'm sorry you waited so long. I've been visiting a friend. You can't just disappear for months on end and just waltz back in as if nothing has happened. This is my home. This is where I live. This is also Rose's home, and she has invited me to stay here with her. We have become lovers, Lynn. I'm still a man where it counts. We slept together and soon fell in love. The master bedroom is our bedroom. If she agrees, you can sleep in the spare bedroom until a more satisfactory arrangement is made. I suppose I better accept her offer. I've nowhere else to go." "What about my job?" "You are currently suspended, as you are absent without leave. I will arrange for you to meet Mrs. Singleton, and she will set out your options." "The interview, Mrs. Singleton will see you now, Lynn," a very cold Rose announced. Rose was Susan's executive assistant. "Thank you, Rose. Perhaps we can talk later? I'll make an appointment with my solicitor to sort out our divorce." C then focused on her monitor. I knocked on Mrs. Singleton's office door and went in when I heard her answer enter. She walked over to her meeting table and indicated I should sit opposite her. "What am I going to do with you, Mr. Charlton?" She used to call me Lynn. "You stopped coming to work months ago." I asked Rose what had happened to you, but she didn't know. She told me that you had brought home another woman she knew to be Kate, so she moved out and hadn't spoken to you since. I'm very fond of Rose. Later, Rose discovered that Kate had replaced her in your affections and was now living with you in your house. I told her in confidence that she was actually my daughter. Kate was distraught at first when you moved out without a word and disappeared, continued Susan. She's angry that you had lied to her. She hadn't known that Rose was your wife. Not only did you lie, you also threatened to expose Kate. I didn't want any staff to know who she was until she had finished her management training, and more importantly, that she was actually my son. I can explain, I stuttered, but she put her hand up to stop me. I don't want your explanations or excuses, save them for the court. Did she say court? I'm giving you a choice of the means for your punishment and retribution and, maybe, rehabilitation. She paused and consulted a tablet on the desk in front of her, and then continued. You can be charged with contravention of the Data Protection Act in that you made unauthorized access to this company's confidential personnel files and made use of the information obtained to coerce my daughter to have a sexual relationship with you under false pretenses. I understand that you can be imprisoned for up to 14 years for the blackmail offence alone, and guess what will happen when your fellow prison mates discover you did it because you were infatuated with a young transvestite and you wanted to sleep with her? I'm sure it wouldn't come to that. The enormity of what I had done was starting to sink in. Well, the sexual predatory nature of your offences are not going to help your defence. I'll continue. Rose has told me that she intends to seek a divorce. The charges you are facing, notwithstanding your extramarital activities and your abandonment of your wife, will mean she can take you to the cleaners. She reached and sipped from a cup of coffee. Oh, I'm so sorry. Would you like a cup? I can ask Rose to bring one in for you. No doubt she knows how you like it. What am I supposed to do now? Do I accept? Better not. I'm fine, thank you. As you wish. The final major breach is that you have failed to fulfill your employment contract for the last 3 months without leave or explanation. So, you are out of a job without any termination payment or back pay, and I wouldn't ask for reference if I was you. I'm in deep, deep shit. I'm going to end up in prison, become the plaything of arse jockeys, and if I survive, I will leave prison with nothing. No wife, no home and no assets, and no prospect of getting a decent job. You said I had a choice. Yes, you do. She pushed a document across the table towards me. As you can see, this is a contract between you, Lynn Charlton, and I, Susan Singleton. It is a services contract, so no employment benefits and protections. You will provide services that I specify from time to time in accordance to various conditions, including your availability at any time and the wearing of specified uniforms. I will provide board and lodging and meet reasonable expenses and supply you anything else you may wish for that I approve. The contract will cease once Mrs. Rose Charlton, Miss Kate Singleton, and I have decided that you have been sufficiently punished and you have shown remorse and can be rehabilitated. You can bring forward your release from the contract by agreeing to or volunteering for additional duties and personal improvements. Please read the contract, and if you agree, sign where indicated. If you don't agree, I'll instruct my lawyer to put in motion legal proceedings for your civil offences and notify the police and Crown Prosecution Service of your criminal offences. Wow, I thought. They must have spent the months of my absence planning what to do when I returned. I don't know what I'm letting myself in for, but I really don't want to go to prison and lose everything. After all, Susan has been a good employer. I have a question, Susan. Mrs. Singleton, Mr. Charlton. What is it? Oh, sorry, Mrs. Singleton. What do I get paid under this contract? £1 a year, just to make it legal. Minimum wage doesn't apply as you will not be an employee. But as I said, I will provide or pay for everything you need, and no doubt you will be able to come to a more amenable divorce settlement if you show remorse to Rose for being unfaithful. I pulled the document towards me and glanced through it. Nothing untoward stood out, but there was nothing specific. I was putting my life for the time being at the mercy of 3 people I still love and admire, so I signed. Susan called Rose in to witness our signatures. Thank you, Lynn. You are embarking on a journey you will not enjoy, but you have made the right choice. You will now accompany me to my home, which is where you will be performing your duties. Can I go home first, Mrs. Singleton? There is nothing at your former home you will need. Rose will pack up everything of yours and put them into storage until you are released from your contract. Now please follow me. Susan got up, picked up her bag, and headed for the door. I looked at Rose. She was still my wife, and saw a glimmer of hope. But what have I wondered? We went out to Susan's Volvo EV90. I climbed into the passenger seat, and we set off in silence. The induction welcome to your new home, Charlton, said Susan solemnly, as she opened the front door. Follow me. I followed her through the hall and into a large, fashionable kitchen. I'm going to make us some tea. Please observe so you can do it in the future. She gestured that I should sit at the kitchen table. A couple of mugs of tea soon appeared. The service you will be providing, for the time being, is housework. Basically all the chores necessary to keep my house clean and my clothes laundered. I will order suitable uniforms for you. You will be available at all times, which means unless you are working you must remain in your room. You may not leave this house unless instructed to do so, or you are at risk. You are being punished after all. Is that understood? Yes, Mrs. Singleton. May I go into the garden? If you work diligently, without complaint, and take care of your appearance, I may consider it. With respect, Mrs. Singleton, I should point out I have very little experience. I am aware. Mrs. Charlton told me that you were chauvinistic when it came to housework. There will be a computer in your room, so you can access the internet to learn how to be and look like a domestic helper. You may also use the computer to entertain yourself. but you may not communicate with anyone in any way. Monitoring software will be installed by the company's IT guru, any such errant use, or anything else untoward, and you will be released from the contract and legal proceedings will begin. That reminds me, I'll take your phone and put it in safekeeping. You will not be needing it. I understand, I said as I handed over my phone, switching it off first. I have no intention of crossing the line. Although I have lost my freedom for the time being, living in this house as a domestic helper is not so bad given the alternative. If you perform well and meet my high standards then, after a suitable period, I will consider if you have been punished enough for the offences you have committed against my company and your leave of absence without approval. You will have to convince me that not only do you carry out your chores diligently, but you are a domestic helper in all aspects. Of course, you will still have to convince Rose and Kate that you have changed for the better. I will now take you up to your room. It was a 2-story house plus an attic. My room, of course, was in the attic. This is your room. You are excused duties today, but you may wish to make your bed. I will show you where the linen cupboard is. This attic was the maid's bedroom. Part of the original room has been converted into a bathroom. You will not use any of the main bathrooms in the house. I looked around the room. It was small, but not cramped. There was a dormer window. It was furnished with a single bed and bedside cabinet, 2 wardrobes, a chest of drawers, a mirrored dressing table and small desk with a chair and a sitting chair. Not as good as home, but better than a prison cell. I noticed what looked like a small smart speaker high up on the wall. The speaker is, if I need you, it replaces the original servant call system. I will show you the rest of the house, brief you on your chores, and where to find what you will need. My briefing took up the rest of the afternoon. We finished in the kitchen and I realised that I was hungry. I had been concentrating as I had decided I was going to give it the best I could. Maybe I could win Rose back, or even Kate, if I impressed them. I expect you are hungry, she must have heard my tummy rumbling. I do my own cooking, well for the time being anyway, and you are welcome to join me when I do. Otherwise you will prepare your own meals. Of course, when I cook you, we'll be clearing up. She prepared a delicious meal of steamed salmon with a vegetable stir-fry, but I was still hungry afterwards. I cleared up and stacked the dishwasher. Tomorrow, I will be in the office. Your uniform should be delivered sometime during the day. There will be 3 deliveries in all. I expect you to be properly dressed by the time I get home. Wear the clothes you are wearing to start your chores tomorrow. It doesn't matter if they get dirty as you will have new clothes. Use your common sense on cleaning, but I suggest you develop a daily routine for bed making, cleaning the kitchen, etc. But put aside time for less frequent tasks such as deep cleaning a room. Do you have any questions, Charlton? No at the moment, Mrs. Singleton. I suggest you retire to your room. Remember, the rest of the house is out of bounds when you are not working. You are not required to assist me in any way in the morning, but I expect you to start work at 8 am and finish at 5 p.m. You may have morning and afternoon tea or coffee breaks and stop for lunch for, say, an half hour. During the evening, you are only expected to clear up the kitchen or deal with any emergencies, such as a spillage. Yes, Mrs. Singleton, I understand. This is not as I expected. I will be working less hours than when I was in the office. I wonder what the catch is. I went up to my new bedroom. I wasn't tired. Although it had been a traumatic day, the outcome was not what I had expected. However, considering what was threatened with, I've probably got off lightly. My first call was the bathroom. While in there, I noticed the countertop, and the cabinet had the usual items, so I could clean my teeth, for instance, in addition to all sorts of cosmetics and beauty aids probably left behind by a previous employee, although they looked unused. Back in the bedroom, I found a simple nightdress hanging in the wardrobe, and one of the drawers contained several plain white bras, matching knickers and a full slip. I recognised them as from the Silhouette Essentials range from Susan's company. They were from the company's mid-range, the same style that Rose usually wore for the office. As I had nothing to put in the drawers yet, I just left them there. I took off my clothes and prepared myself for bed. I felt cold and was tempted to wear the nightdress. I had slept with cross-dressers who wore feminine nightdresses, but it wasn't for me. The first day of my retribution, I woke early. I dressed in the clothes I arrived in and went down to the kitchen. Susan had left. She often was at her desk early, I recall. All I could find for breakfast were various nuts, grains and dried fruit and yogurt. I wonder if I could ask Susan for eggs, maybe some bacon. I finished my meal before 8:30 and made my way up to Susan's bedroom. I was surprised to see the bed was made and the room tidy. I looked into the bathroom and decided the bathroom suite could do with a clean. I then went and fetched the vacuum cleaner and gave the bedroom carpet a once-over. The other rooms also seemed to be tidy and presentable except the kitchen, so I decided to give the kitchen a thorough cleaning. At least I would have something to show for my efforts. I was just finishing mopping the floor when the front door bell rang. Well, I say rang. There was ding-dong followed by a woman's voice saying there's someone at the front door, emanating from a speaker on one of the worktops. Must be one of those smart doorbell gadget things. All beyond me. I opened the door to a young woman holding a box. "Is Lynn Charlton in?" she asked. "I'm Lynn Charlton," I replied. She looked surprised and a little uncertain. "I have a delivery from Domestic Uniforms and Workwear." She handed me the box. She took a photo of me holding it and then turned and dashed back to her delivery van. I looked at the label and saw it was addressed to Miss Lynn Charlton. I chuckled. No wonder she appeared confused. I took the box up to my room and opened it up. There were several garments and a pair of shoes inside. I took out the first one and held it up. It looked like a dress that a maid would wear. I chuckled again. There clearly had been a mistake, so I carefully returned the dress to the box. I returned to my duties and decided to vacuum the other rooms when the doorbell rang again. This time it was a package from Marks & Spencer, also addressed to Ms. Lynn Charlton. I opened it and found a dress inside. Now I was starting to wonder. It is not like Susan would get it wrong twice. She did say to expect 3 deliveries. I wondered what the third one would be. I didn't have to wait for long. The third package was wrapped in a plain paper. No indication of the sender except a Royal Mail P.O. box number. I opened this one in the kitchen. My heart dropped when I saw the contents. I was familiar with them. They were what my cross-dressing lovers would wear. There were a pair of breast forms and a waist cincher. Then it sunk in. The uniforms and the dress were for me, and the lingerie in my drawers were for me also. Susan had said something about wearing specified uniforms. I wonder if she misunderstood me. I have a thing for cross-dressers, but I'm not a cross-dresser myself. Never have been. With my familiarity with men wearing dresses and lingerie, the thought doesn't repulse me, but neither does it excite. Susan was expecting me to be wearing my uniform when I got home. I was wondering what to do when I heard someone come into the house and soon after Susan entered the kitchen. "I expect you have a number of questions, Charlton," she said with a smirk, which soon became an affable giggle. "To comply with the contract, you are to wear specified uniforms, and you are to be available at any time. So you will be dressing as a maid, both on duty and as a female, when you are off duty. Dressing as a female is part of your rehabilitation, as you were unfaithful to Rose and absent from work because of your penchant for transvestites. We felt it was fitting that you dress and present as a working subservient woman. Then these deliveries are really for me, and also the lingerie in my bedroom? Yes, that is right. As from this evening, you will dress as a female in the clothes I provide, and you will be Ms. Lynn, with an A, Charlton. After they have been laundered, I will take and store your male clothes. I want to see you in your uniform now. While I prepare a meal, please go and change. Will you need any help?" "No, I think I'll be okay, Mrs. Singleton, thank you. Although I've never dressed in women's clothes before, I've seen Rose and Kate, and others, getting dressed." "Well, go then. I want to see how it fits." "Yes, Mrs. Singleton." I picked up the box I had been examining and went to my room. I took off my clothes and put them aside, wondering when I would be wearing them again, and pulled out the drawer containing the bras and knickers I had seen earlier, and took out one of each. I put them on. They were a good fit. I then realised, with the way Kate and Susan had been behaving, and with a contract already prepared, that my punishment had been planned and already prepared in detail. I took out the breast forms and inserted them into the bra cups, and adjusted the bra until it looked right, except for the hair on my chest. Actually, looking at myself in the mirror, the white attractive underwear with my hirsute body looked strangely alluring. I then put on the slip. It at least covered up my torso. I took out the uniform dress from the box I had bought up earlier. It was a black dress with a collar and cuffs in white pique. I unbuttoned the dress and slipped it on. I realised it wouldn't fit without the waist cincher, so off with the dress and on with the cincher. I slipped the dress back on and buttoned up the front and the half belt behind. This time the slim fit dress fitted, and with a constricted waist, breast forms, and the gentle curve of the dress, suggesting wider hips, I did look the part, except for the body hair that it is. The short sleeves exposed my hairy arms, the hem of the skirt exposed my hairy legs, and the V-neck the top of my hairy dress. I didn't want to shave off my bodily hair, but I looked ridiculous. I'll show Susan first. Perhaps she will swap the dress for a tunic and trousers, but somehow I doubt it. Next was an apron. It was a short waist apron in white cotton and a scalloped edging. I tied the apron in a bow. Finally, there was a pair of plain black shoes with a low block heel. I slipped them. They fitted and seemed reasonably comfortable. At least I'm not expected to work wearing high heels. I made my way down to see Susan. "Let me have a look at you." Susan walked round, adjusting my dress and retying the apron. "How does it feel, Charlton?" "Unexpectedly comfortable, Mrs. Singleton." "Good. It looks that we have the right size for you. What about the shoes and lingerie?" "Also comfortable." "You did not wear the tights?" "Sorry, I didn't realise there were any." "Not to worry. Tomorrow I'm taking the day off. We can sort you out a pair then." "There is some hair removal cream in your bathroom. You will remove all your bodily hair, even from the parts that won't be seen, before you come down for breakfast. You have no choice on this matter, but your hair can grow back when your contract ends. I have made an appointment for my hairdresser to be here tomorrow morning to sort out your hair. You must be presentable and be prepared to answer the door without embarrassing me, and no doubt yourself." "Understood, Mrs. Singleton. To be honest, I don't want to look like a woman, but I've seen enough unconvincing cross-dressers that I don't want to be taken as a man in a maid's uniform. While I am pretending to be your maid, I will make every effort to be convincing." "You are not pretending to be my maid. You are my maid, and I can ensure you will not be released from your contract until you can convince us you are a woman in looks, behaviour, and mind. There is no need for drastic changes, such as hormones or surgery, unless you elect to feminize your body yourself." I was not surprised by what she said. I could see the way this was going. "Now, how did your day go?" "I don't think I've seen the kitchen so clean since it was new." "Well done. Thank you, Mrs. Singleton." That was unexpected, and a sense of pride came over me. She had never praised me in the office. "You made your own bed this morning?" Force of habit. "Now sit down and eat. Don't forget to smooth your skirt as you sit." Susan was quite chatty. Maybe it was because she had been living alone since Kate had left to live with me. Not what I expected. After I cleared up the supper things, I went up to my room. I took off my uniform and hung it up in the wardrobe. I then tried on the M&S dress. It had short sleeves, a round collar, and the bodice fitted my new shape well when I zipped it up. The skirt was flowing and fell to below my knees. It had a floral pattern, mainly orange, yellow and red on a white background, a contrast to the maid's dress. I got up early to make time to get ready, remove my body hair and have a close shave. I dressed in my new uniform, including a pair of black, opaque tights that I found. They were quite thick. Trixie had described to me how to put on tights when she was dressing one morning, a lesson unintentionally learnt. I came down and joined Susan for breakfast. I had just cleared the breakfast things away when I heard the smart speaker announce there was somebody at the door. "That will be the hairdresser," said Susan. "Can you go up to my bedroom while I'll let him in?" At least Susan is respecting my feelings. I do look like a maid, but with a man's head. I started to strip her bed. I thought I would put her sheets in the wash when Susan entered the room with a rather handsome man. "Charlton, leave that for the moment." She turned to the man and said, "George, this is my new maid, who I told you about." She turned back to me. "This is George. He is a hairdresser. He has come to complete your transformation. Well enough, so you can at least answer the door." "Hello," he said. "You are Lynn, I presume?" "Yes," I replied. "Mrs. Singleton has explained to me what is to be done, so let's get on with it." It took most of the morning, but when George had finished, I was astounded. As you know, I am very familiar with men made up to look like women. I consider myself an expert, some clearly making no attempt or unsuccessfully hiding their masculinity, others who were made up to perfection and only the heaviness of their makeup giving the game away. The exception was Kate, who looked so natural, and only a peep under her skirts would betray her secret. Actually, not even then. Given the conventional style I had to work with shorter hair on the sides and back, I've given you a pixie cut with the slightly longer layers on the top. It will be an easy style for you to maintain, but you will need regular trims. You will find it more practical than wearing a wig when carrying out your duties. I have had to apply concealer and foundation to cover your 5 o'clock shadow, so you will be presentable all day. If you were to ask Mrs. Singleton to arrange for me to remove your beard, you will look more natural. A woman in your position should wear minimal makeup, and you will save time in the morning. Susan entered just at the moment. "Oh, George, you've done a wonderful job with Charlton. I do like her hair and the way you lightened it. I noticed it is female pronouns now, and yes, my fair hair now had blonde highlights. I now have a flattering hairstyle, well suited for a working woman. I did look like a woman now, no longer a man. Surely it wasn't just the hairstyle and the makeup. Then I noticed the way my eyebrows had been shaped. It is almost as if by magic I was now a woman. At least they will grow back. Thank you, Susan. I would recommend you book her a series of sessions with me to remove her beard. Then she can look natural all day. I thought I don't mind not shaving, but I might like to grow a beard or show stubble when all this nonsense ends. Becoming a domestic helper over the next few months, Susan was quite tolerant and supportive as I struggled with becoming her domestic helper. Eventually, I got into the swing of carrying out the household chores. I wouldn't say I enjoyed housework. Who would? Well, okay, some of you might. But I did become competent in keeping everything in order, and I felt a certain amount of pride when Susan complimented me. Susan's house was well equipped with household appliances, so I had time to extend my skill set, as if it were, by improving my cooking skills. Susan had a good selection of cookbooks, and I did have access to the internet. I had to start from a very low base. Beans on toast was my culinary highlight as a man, and I was a dab hand in ordering from Just Eat or Deliveroo. But I was now preparing proper yet simple meals for Susan and myself. My appearance and well-being improved. Susan continually added to my wardrobe until I had a good selection of uniforms and protective clothing, as well as dresses for when I was off duty. You could say that I wasn't not enjoying dressing as a woman, wearing lingerie from Singleton silhouettes and the good-looking clothes provided. Charlton, I'm pleased with the way you are fulfilling the services part of your contract. I'm minded to extend your duties to include shopping and preparing and serving when I entertain guests. However, you are not ready, which means you are a long way from being released. Thank you, Mrs. Singleton. But how can I improve? I would like you to learn how to prepare snacks, such as canapes that can be served at receptions or parties, and formal 3 or 4 course meals for entertaining. I'm enjoying the meals you have been preparing. Just extend your range to suitable snacks and dishes. Yes, of course, I have enough time to experiment. Actually, I think I would enjoy that. However, the main problem is that you are only going through the motions in dressing and presenting as a woman. It is not enough just to wear a dress and put on makeup. You will not be released from your contract until your ex-wife, Kate, and I agree that you are beyond the shadow of a doubt a female domestic helper in mind and body. That means going out in public to shop and to serve my guests without anyone suspecting your secret. Only then will we truly believe that your punishment has rehabilitated you. Susan turned and left the room without saying anything further. This is going to be tough. I have known many cross-dressers and trans women, but only Kate would pass that test, and she was brought up a girl and has the body of a woman. It looks like I'm going to be here for the rest of my days. Life continued as before. I couldn't complain. Living with Susan was not uncomfortable, and I had come to enjoy being house pride, even though it wasn't my home. I improved my cooking so much, so I was now looking forward to the day I could cater for a formal party or dinner. But I missed not going out or meeting people. Even delivery persons had no time to chat nowadays. Some didn't even ring the doorbell, just a routine email or text confirmation after delivery. It was a summer morning. The light of the early dawn had awakened me long before I needed to get up and prepare Susan's breakfast. I was thinking about how I was going to live up to Susan's expectations and be released from my contract. And then it dawned on me. Well, it was that time of the day. Susan had laid down the rules and provided me the wherewithal to look like her domestic helper, the clothes, makeup and regular visits from George. But it was up to me to show remorse for what I had done by showing initiative and commitment. It was like a test of my resolve to redeem myself. Up to now, everything could be reversed tomorrow. Well, nearly everything. Some things will take a little longer. Eyebrows don't grow back overnight. I was well versed in what can be done to feminize a man. After all, I had made love to a diverse selection of cross-dressers and trans women, as well as biological women, like my ex-wife. I had to decide between life, as it is now, which wasn't too bad, but I was lonely and could do with a little action, or life as a feminized man, which would give me my freedom and, let's face it, depending how far I go, I could pick up my old social life again. The problem would be, could I get work in due course looking like a woman? And no, walking the streets was not an option. I thought about the feminized men I knew well. There was Trixie. She shaved her legs and had implants. She was ravishing, but was too much over the top, clearly a man. She was a good lay, but not a role model. On the other hand, Kate was simply beautiful. Not a trace of the inner man, but she was decades in the making. Trixie could go back to being a man if she wanted to. Kate was never a man, except where it counts. So I had a choice. Do nothing as if it were. Not bad looking in my uniforms, but forever a lonely housebound maid. For that's what I am really, until Susan or I die. I betrayed each of Susan, Rose and Kate. I cannot see all three agreeing to release me from my contract early and Susan is a businesswoman. She takes contracts seriously. Or I can become a woman, embark on a path to feminization until I reach a threshold that satisfies the three of them. I can transition step by step so I could keep the door open as long as possible to revert to being a man again. Whatever path I take, I know I'm comfortable in the company of crossdressers, although I've never previously worn the clothes of the opposite sex and now I have no inhibitions in doing so. But not as a man in a dress, but as someone who could pass at least. That's not the dilemma. Is the price of near irreversible feminization worth my freedom? I need time to think about this. The summer was passing by, and autumn was approaching. The leaves on the birch trees in Susan's garden were already turning brown. It was a Sunday, and Susan and I were enjoying brunch. Susan likes to take Sunday easy, spending time away from office work. We usually ate and chatted together. I think Susan liked the company. I wondered if she was using a carrot of treating me with civility, as opposed to a stick of an old-fashioned domestic mistress-maid relationship. Mrs. Singleton, our contract allowed for the provision of anything I wished, and you approve of. Yes, Lynn, that is correct. She has just called me Lynn. It has always been Charlton, and before that Lynn. Maybe it was because I was wearing a simple, plain, fit and flare yellow dress she had bought me for when I was off duty. As it was a Sunday, I was only carrying out minimal tasks. What can I help you with? I feel in a sort of limbo. I'm not unhappy with my life, but I do feel lonely. Not that I don't value our relationship, but I would like to be able to socialise a bit more, even if just to serve your guests. To do so, I need to pass as a natural woman, so as not to embarrass you or myself. What had you in mind? Susan looked unsure. Hormones. I want to have hormone therapy to feminise my body. Susan looked surprised before a smirk appeared. I was also surprised. I had intended to ask for figure-enhancing implants as they could be removed, but I asked for hormones. I suppose that at the instant I felt subconsciously I needed to show real commitment if I was to look as if I was showing remorse. I realised implants were too easy, and being removable could be seen as not being sincere. Hormone therapy would take several years, but then no one could doubt I wasn't trying, and I knew it would be a long time anyway, at the earliest, before this all came to an end. And frankly, I was now resigned to the reality that I would not be going back to my old life. I did mention that you may bring forward your release asking for or agreeing to personal improvements. You have just done so. Her smirk was replaced by a welcoming smile. I will arrange for the company's doctor to make a house call. This improvement will not be enough in itself, and you will have to see it through. But frankly, without it, you would have probably remained in my service ad infinitum. Thank you, Mrs. Singleton. I was relieved I had asked for hormones, albeit one on the spur of the moment. You're welcome, Lynn. You have made the right decision, and I'm pleased it was voluntary. If you had requested implants, I would have refused because I would not have believed you were being sincere enough. Well, at least we concur, and I did make the right decision. And Lynn, to mark your progress, you may now call me Susan, when we are alone and you are not in uniform, like now. Yes, Susan. Thank you, Susan. I believe George offered to eradicate your beard? Yes, he did. Susan. Would you like me to arrange for him to do so? It will take a number of sessions, and he can do it when he is doing your hair. Becoming a woman over the next year, the hormones gradually took effect. I definitely now had the shape and appearance of a woman, although not all my so-called improvements had yet fully matured. I had also been studying various online self-help advice and videos, and had adopted the mannerisms and, with much practice, I developed dulcet tones more akin to those of a woman. My admiration of cross-dressers was reflecting back on myself. There is no doubt now that I liked wearing and seeing myself in my uniforms and dresses, especially now my body was starting to show curves, and I was particularly enamoured with my breasts. I loved looking at and playing with them. They had become my new friends. Susan has recently brought home for me some new bras with A-cups. No need for the breast forms now. I was enchanted with the way my perky breasts filled the cups. No wonder my more adventurous former friends loved having breasts and letting everyone know. I had the evening meal ready. I just needed to finish off and dish up when Susan arrived home. Lynn, dinner ready in 10 minutes, okay? Yes, Susan, no problem. I am now used to calling her Susan whenever we are alone, even when I'm wearing my uniform. With my decision to take hormones has softened her attitude to me. I've shown her I'm serious about showing regret for my betrayals. After we had eaten, and I had brought in some coffee, Susan got out some papers and put them in front of me. Lynn, you have shown good progress over this last year, and I believe it will soon be time to allow you out of the house to run errands, say. So I've asked my company lawyer to draw up some documents for you to sign. Look carefully through them, and if you agree, sign them with your existing signature. We've checked, and your signature can easily be interpreted as your old or new names. She placed a pen beside the papers. Don't date them, as they will need to be submitted in the right sequence. I looked at them. There was a gender recognition certificate and a deed poll to change my name to Lynn Rose Charlton. Lynn I would have expected, but why Rose as my middle name? I didn't need such a reminder of my ex-wife, but there again my middle name is Robert, so the initial is the same. There was also an application for additional debit and credit cards on Susan's account for Miss Lynn R. Charlton, and an application to change the name and address and photo on my driving licence. I was excited. I clearly was making progress. Besides, I can always change these details again. I signed the forms where indicated and returned them to Susan. Thank you for this vote of confidence in me. You've still a long way to go, but this will allow you to leave the house and run errands for me, including shopping. You won't be driving, well, not just yet anyway, but you will be able to use your new driving licence as ID. You can only use the debit and credit cards for expenditure that I have agreed to. I'll get automatic notifications on my phone whenever the cards are used. Over the next few weeks, the documents all arrived. Some I had to sign for, the signature was the same, but they were addressed to Mrs. and not Mrs. It was a Friday evening, and Susan just returned home from the office after a busy week. I have a surprise for you, Lynn. Tomorrow we are going shopping together. Now you can easily pass as a woman. You are going to need suitable outdoor clothes for autumn and winter. I wasn't sure how I would deal with being out in public, interacting with people. In the past I have been with some cross-dressers who frankly didn't pass. Most of the time it didn't matter, especially at night in more dubious places. But at other times I was embarrassed, not just for myself, but for my companion. But I knew I had to do this. Otherwise, I wasn't going to earn my freedom. I took comfort in that Susan knew what she was doing, given that Kate is her son, and that gave me confidence. It was a warm, sunny day, and I had nothing to fear. Our shopping trip went well. We were like two girlfriends, perhaps more like mother and daughter as we are a generation apart, out for the day to enjoy themselves. Susan treated me to lunch. Well, I have no money of my own I can access. I now have a short coat, more like a jacket really, and a long padded coat for winter. I have a pair of ankle boots. Susan insisted I wear heels, so we picked a style with 3-inch heels, thicker than stiletto heels, which was fortunate as I discovered later negotiating various outdoor surfaces. I also now have my own shoulder bag with a matching wallet and a tote bag for when I had more things to carry. I now did all the household shopping, no more online grocery deliveries. I enjoyed being able to go out even if it was just to visit the local shopping centre and supermarket or take the bus to the town centre. I only spoke to shop staff and bus drivers, but it was something. I was able to use my newly acquired bank cards, not only for shopping and expenses, but to buy things I might need. No need to ask Susan anymore. I was able to buy additional things to cope with the seasons, like gloves and a scarf and warmer tights. Lynn, said Susan, now you can pass easily as a woman. I assume you have had no embarrassing encounters. You haven't, have you? I take great care not to be mistaken for a man, and I haven't yet noticed anything untoward. Everyone I encounter has treated me as a woman. It's quite nice, actually. Good. But be careful, Lynn, don't become complacent. And remember, you are more vulnerable now than when you were just a man. You can visit George at his salon. There is no need for him to make a house call now. I enjoyed my visits to the hairdressers. George, of course, knew, but everyone else treated me as one of their regular women customers. I felt I had passed the toughest test of all. Well, perhaps not the toughest, but I wasn't going there. I will miss it if and when I can revert to being a man. Susan has started entertaining at home again. Kate and Rose and always been regulars, but now I was presentable. Friends and clients were invited to dinner. Dinners I prepared and served. I bet you were expecting I had to wear a maid's uniform. Sorry to disappoint. I wore a plain but smart classic dress and an apron when preparing and dishing up food and clearing up. The setback one day, I was in town on an errand and was passing the Queen's Head. I had plenty of time and couldn't resist nipping in for a quick look to see if there was anybody there I knew. Well, I did see, well heard first actually, Trixie propping up the bar, holding court in front of 2 young men, eagerly following her every word and flamboyant gestures. She glanced up to see who had just come in, Showing no sign of recognition, she quickly turned back to her young acolytes in the making. Of course she didn't recognize me. I was no longer the trans chaser she threw out of her den. I was a presentable young working woman, innocently stumbling into the wrong type of pub. I quickly realized the Queen's Head was no longer a place for me, and left. I don't know why, but I felt different. I wasn't excited about seeing crossdressers anymore. Their company no longer appealed to me. They belonged to my past now. Although I was now a reluctant crossdresser myself, I didn't think of myself as one. As I walked back down the high street to the bus station, I had my road to Damascus moment. I was in public presenting as an everyday woman, being accepted as such. That is who I am now, whatever I wished. And I was confident. These new thoughts swirled through my mind as I rode the bus back home. My home, not just Susan's. Was this conversion, this new life, part of a plan Susan, Kate and Rose had for me, or an unintended consequence? Whatever it was, I was now comfortable in my new life and the way it was developing. I was certainly glad I had chosen the path that kept me out of prison. I wondered if I would still feel this way when I was finally released from my contract. A week later, my newfound awareness was shattered. I was informed that I had been spotted coming out of the Queen's Head. The problem for me was that no one had seen me go in just a moment before, and so the conclusion was that I had abused my earned privilege to go out in public on my own. Lynn, I am very disappointed with you. You betrayed my trust by reverting to the old Lynn, Susan admonished. I thought you were doing well as my domestic helper, becoming my friend even. I'm sorry, Mrs. Charlton. Calling her Susan seems inappropriate at the moment. She interrupted me. I don't want to hear. You appear to have time to go gallivanting around up to your old ways, so you will be spending time working in the company's office. Surely she didn't expect me to go back to my old job? Then I realized she had something else in mind. You will be on duty during office hours as a cleaner. You will be keeping the toilets and break area clean and dealing with any spillages or problems that crop up. You start on Monday. I will bring home some suitable clothes for you. Actually, I mean unsuitable, she laughed. You will not be wearing one of your nice uniforms or pretty dresses. I was ready for work on Monday. I was wearing blue jeans. They were skinny but not particularly stylish. A white cotton vest with thin straps, and clearly on show was a red bra. It was a cheap brand, not from the Silhouette lingerie range. I never liked seeing exposed underwear. My hair was pulled back into a tight bun. I was wearing large white plastic hoop earrings. Susan did my makeup. It was light, but with garish blue eyeshadow and red lipstick. My look was a far cry from my neat domestic uniform and off-duty dresses. I liked that woman, but not the woman I was today. It was embarrassing. And what if Kate or Rose saw me, or any of my former colleagues recognized me? As we pulled into the car park, Susan stopped the car. Go and report to reception. You are expected. The receptionist doesn't know you from your former days here. Thank you, Mrs. Singleton, I said as I opened the car door. She then drove off to her reserved parking space near the building entrance as I walked through the car park. I'm Lynn Charlton. I'm starting work here today, I announced to the receptionist who was looking down at me. Actually, she was seated and I was standing at the counter. She was looking down at me as her inferior. It was the way I was dressed, clearly part of the humiliation Susan intended for me. She was nicely attired in an attractive bodyform dress in royal blue with a high neck and capped sleeves. I was jealous. I would love to be wearing what she was wearing. Yes, we are expecting you, Miss Charlton, she said with some disdain. She picked up her phone and then paused before announcing, There's a Miss Charlton in reception for you. She replaced the handset and turned back to me. Someone will be with you shortly. You may wait over there. She pointed to a row of chairs on the other side of reception. I remember them. A quarter of an hour later, Rose walked into reception, saw me waiting, smiled, and walked towards me. The smile very quickly morphed into a smirk. Miss Charlton, you are here as a day cleaner. Come with me. I followed her to the small storeroom I remember was used by the cleaners, and we entered. We were alone. First of all, Lynn, I must say I was very disappointed you have gone back to your old self. We thought you were doing very well as Susan's housekeeper. She called me her housekeeper. I felt pride when I heard that. So much better than just a domestic helper. She continued, and you were becoming the woman we had all hoped you could be. So that was part of the plan all along, to feminize me so that I worked, lived and presented as a woman. But Susan, I haven't, but you have, and it is Mrs. Charlton here at the office, and if anyone asks, we are not related. Now here is your trolley with everything you need. Miss Holt, the receptionist, will be your supervisor. Your main tasks are to keep the toilets and the staff areas clean and tidy, and to replenish supplies from this storeroom. If you are needed to clean up or any other task, Miss Holt will call you over the PA system. There have been no changes since you worked here, so you know where everything is. Susan, Mrs. Singleton, will give you a lift tonight. She will call you when she is ready to leave. Understood? Any questions? No, Mrs. Charlton. I am making arrangements for you to live in a bed-sitting room nearby. You will receive an allowance for living expenses and for additional clothing. That is your future now, until you satisfy the terms of contract, eventually. At least you will be able to spend your spare time with your old cross-dressing buddies. You are one of them now. I'm very disappointed in you, Lynn. By the way, if any of your former colleagues recognise you, you will be transferred to the main cleaning team who work during the night. I do not wish to be embarrassed if it is known you were once my husband. With that, she opened the door and left the storeroom. There was a cleaner's tabard in the storeroom. I wasn't so worried about protecting my clothes as hiding my embarrassing, partially exposed bra from view. It wasn't my style. I loaded up my trolley and headed for the break area. There would be complaints if the coffee machine was out of supplies. I then progressed to the toilets. Quite frankly, the overnight contractors clearly only gave them only a superficial once-over. It was going to take me days to get them properly clean. It was getting late, and most of the staff had gone home. I was relieved as nobody had recognised me. I wondered if it was probably because everyone ignored the cleaner, unless they needed something, of course, or because I was now passing as a woman and therefore didn't give rise to any suspicion. I was terrified of the embarrassment of being found out. Actually, that's not totally true. I had felt comfortable with my former role in Susan's household and was actually proud of my appearance and what I had achieved. But the ridicule of my trashy look and the denigration of my fool to cleaning the toilets used by my former colleagues had knocked me back. My thoughts were interrupted when I heard a call over the PA system. Will the cleaner please report to reception? I was near the cleaner's storeroom, so I left my trolley there and headed to reception. Ah, Lynn, there you are. Susan was standing by the reception counter, looking at some papers. Finish up and you can come home with me. Take your time. Thank you, Mrs. Charlton. I had been wondering what was going to happen, where I was going to stay tonight, and how I was going to get there. I had no money. At least that is no longer a problem for tonight. I won't be 5 minutes. I wasn't. I rushed up to the cleaning store, checked everything was put away for the overnight cleaners, and took off my tabard. I must say I was impressed with what you have done so far in the ladies, and I've heard good comments about the gents' toilet. I've never seen our toilets so clean before, said Susan as she drove. Perhaps we have found your new vocation in life, she chuckled. We arrived at her home. We shared the preparation of the evening. I was no longer the domestic helper, just someone Susan was putting up for the night. By the end of the week, I had both the ladies' and gents' toilets and the staff break area spick and span and in good order. I was wondering what other duties I might be asked to do to keep me busy. It was mid-afternoon on Friday when I got a call to attend the executive suite. As I pushed my trolley into the suite's reception area, I heard a call from within the conference room. Lynn, in here, please. As I entered, I saw Susan, Rose and Kate all sitting at the conference table. Lynn, please join us, said Susan, indicating an empty seat. Lynn, first of all, we would like to compliment you on the work you have done this week. You have done an astounding job. Everyone is pleased with the cleanliness and the supplies in the areas you have been responsible for. Thank you, I said quietly, as I wasn't sure where this was leading. Secondly, we want to apologise to you, she turned to Kate. Kate, can you tell Lynn what you discovered? Yes, Mum, replied Kate. When I heard that you had visited the Queen's Head, I was very disappointed, but couldn't really believe that you had reverted to your old ways despite all that Mum had done for you and the progress you were making. So I decided to call in and see if I could find out more. To cut a long story short, I viewed the CTV footage at the time you were seen entering the pub, and I saw you come in, take a quick look around, and leave. Lynn, I was the one to see you leave the pub, cut in Rose, and so I told Susan. I had not realised you only just entered. I am so sorry. Particularly, you have done nothing else but keep to your contract with Susan faithfully. I wasn't sure what to say, having heard Kate and Rose. And I am so sorry I didn't let you tell me your side of the story. I was angry and disappointed at the time, said Susan. So here's what we are going to do. First of all, I need to tell you that you haven't reached the threshold we have in mind to release you from your contract. But you have two choices. You can carry on as a female day cleaner. You are doing a very good job. You can move to the bed sitting room Rose told you about this weekend, and you will be paid an allowance to cover your living expenses, including clothes and pocket money. You will be free to do as you wish when not at work, including how you dress. You said I had two choices. Yes, you can continue working for me, but as my housekeeper. Consider it a promotion with extra responsibilities, with more interaction with others and how they see you. This unfortunate episode has made us realize that you have improved and we should have trusted you. You can decide tomorrow. Actually, this was a no-brainer, so I replied without hesitation. Thank you for having faith in me and offering me a choice. There is no need for me to give it consideration. I would like to remain part of your household. If there is a need for me to help out here, then I'm willing provided I am not dressed like this. I waved my hand over the top part of my body. They laughed, but not at me, more amongst themselves. Sorry about that, apologized Susan. It was to humiliate you in front of your ex-colleagues. I'm pleased you have chosen to be my housekeeper. I don't think you would have satisfied the contract if you were on your own. The announcement, life at Susan's house, resumed. Lynn had been inviting guests, and her friends often dropped in without warning. It was as if previously she was keeping me hidden from others, but was now proud to show off her housekeeper. She bought me better clothes, both for my duties and for when I was off duty, and we were back on first-name terms. Thank you, Lynn, said Susan, as I brought her allowances to her in her study. Kate and Rose are coming for lunch next Saturday. I would like you to prepare something special, just 2 courses, and for you to join us, you will be more like a hostess than a housekeeper. Susan and I normally eat together when we are alone or with Kate, but this is the first time with a guest, even though the guest is my ex-wife. I wondered if the occasion was special. Are they going to appraise my performance so far? Surely I must be close to meeting the threshold to release me from my contract. Not only am I looking and living like a woman, I have fully embraced my new lifestyle. Not that I had any realistic option. For the first course, I prepared some dim sum. The various items took me all morning to prepare. I had been branching out and trying out new cuisines. Both Susan and I both enjoy Chinese food, but found takeaway from the local Chinese restaurant too much of a compromise and a hodgepodge of the various cuisines of China. Susan had lived in Hong Kong for a few years, gaining experience with a lingerie company which sourced from factories in mainland China, and had loved going for a leisurely dim sum for lunch every Sunday with her colleagues. She really appreciated my homemade efforts, and she did say wanted something special. The first course was nearly ready when Kate and Rose arrived together. Susan ushered them into the dining room as I finished off preparing the dim sum, serving the morsels on a single platter. These spring rolls are delicious, enthused Rose. Did you really make them yourself? They are certainly better than the last lot I bought from Tesco. Yes, I did. Except I did use ready-prepared pastry sheets from the local Chinese shop. And to think your only dish was beans on toast when we were married, and you usually burnt the toast, she laughed. But with affection, and no malice or ridicule. Things have changed since I was unfaithful to her. For the main course, I served steamed wild salmon with fresh vegetables and a herb and garlic cream sauce. When you see clean plates, you don't know whether to be pleased that everyone enjoyed the dishes, or be worried if you have served enough and they wanted more. So I decided, in my role as the de facto hostess today, to offer a further course. I can rustle up a dessert or perhaps offer you a cheese board. Kate? Rose? Asked Susan. No, I'm fine, replied Kate. Me too, added Rose. That was wonderful, Lynn. And plenty, said Susan. Didn't I tell you Lynn is now accomplished in the kitchen, she said to the others. She has been teaching herself from the internet and my modest selection of cookbooks, and I think you agree has passed all expectations in that department. So the meal seems to have been some form of assessment after all. Hear, hear, they responded. It didn't register at first, but in replaying in my mind what Susan had just said, it hit me, that she referred to me as she. I hadn't noticed when she was speaking, perhaps because I initially heard he, as that is what I would have expected, or was I now subconsciously accepting myself in the feminine? So let's just relax and enjoy the rest of the wine, continued Susan. Rose, I think you have something to tell Lynn. Yes, Susan. Rose looked at me. Lynn, when you came home, it must be 2 years now, Kate was still living there. Well, she hasn't left, and she and I are still sharing the house. I think you know this. I nodded, not sure where this was going, although, out of my reach for the time being, I still owned half the house, and I have assumed my belongings are still there, other than my more recent collection of women's clothes, obviously. We have got to know each other very well, and we have decided to get married. All 3 looked at me anxiously, as if they cared about my reaction to Rose's news. I experienced a flurry of mixed emotions. Although I had accepted our divorce, I still thought of Rose as my wife, and I still had feelings for Kate as my former lover. They were no longer mine. They belonged to each other now. It was the end of my life as I used to know it. I was jealous and regretted my obsession with crossdressers, and my affair with Trixie. That feeling passed in a flash and was replaced with great joy. They all saw the sudden change in my expression and started beaming. I stood and went to Rose, who also stood, and we hugged. I put my arm out to Kate, and she joined us. Susan sat there, looking as pleased as punch. I was a different person now. We retreated to the sitting room, where Kate opened a bottle of champagne and poured out 4 glasses. I tried to take over. It was my job after all, but she waved me away. Of course, Kate was still the sun, so it seemed natural that she did the honours, although Susan led the toast. To Rose and Kate and their new lives, as she raised her glass, and to Lynn and her new life. That was unexpected and puzzling. We had settled down, and it dawned on me I was forgetting my responsibilities. I stood up and announced, "I will go and prepare coffee." Everything was ready. I had just had to switch on the coffee maker. "Sit down, Lynn," replied Susan. "We are enjoying our champagne." "And I have something I want to ask you," added Rose. I sat down again and looked at Rose in anticipation. "Lynn," she started, "you have made good progress with your new life here with Susan. We had our doubts, but frankly, we hoped you would change and become a better person. Be yourself." She paused as if that is all she was going to say. Then she spoke again. "You have taken up the opportunity we provided and have become a loyal and dedicated housekeeper to Susan and taken to a life as a woman. You even accepted without complaint and did a wonderful job as a cleaner when we imposed the undeserved punishment." She paused again. "Lynn, I have talked this over with both Kate and Susan, and they fully support me with what I'm about to offer. You don't have to say yes, and I'll respect and understand your decision." I wondered what she was on about. Would it not be a matter for Susan to release me from my contract? Rose continued. "Lynn, I've always loved you as a person, as a friend, but as a husband you were unfaithful and never considered my needs and happiness as your wife. That's all behind us now." She stood up and approached me and smiled. I stood up and she took my hands. "Lynn, I would love very much if you would be my bridesmaid, would you? Please." I froze. I was not expecting this. Surely not with my infidelity to her in seeking out crossdressers, but she seemed so sincere, so keen. And for me, yes, I am used to living as a woman now, but my feminine life and aspirations are as a female housekeeper who liked to look nice when she went out on errands, and I wanted to complete the contract. I never have any dreams beyond my own little world, certainly not as a bridesmaid, and to my ex-wife to boot. But without hesitation, I knew I wanted to do this, to be a bridesmaid. To be Rose's bridesmaid, as her best friend. "Yes, I would be honoured to be your bridesmaid. Thank you." Rose squealed and kissed me on the lips, just like old times. We spent the rest of the day discussing wedding plans. I was surprised. I was in at the beginning, and I was being treated as an equal. But of course, as in any wedding, what the bride's mother wants the bride's mother gets. And that was what Susan was in the case. For as far as anyone is concerned, it was to be a same-sex marriage with 2 brides. Besides, Susan said she would be footing the bill. After Rose and Kate left, Susan motioned that I should join her back in the sitting room. "Lynn, I'm so pleased Rose asked you to be her bridesmaid. And you agreed?" Enthusiastically, I noticed. "Yes, I am looking forward to it very much, I have to confess, much to my amazement." "Well, you deserve it. You've done a great deal to regain her trust." "I hadn't thought of that. I must have done," I said quietly, but that wasn't what I meant. Apart from being a bride, being a bridesmaid must be a dream for many girls, with the gown, the activities, and all that sort of thing. It was something I had never even crossed my mind, but as soon as she asked me, I knew that I wanted to be a bridesmaid, to dress up for the occasion and enjoy being one of the girls for the day. "I'm so glad, Lynn. We have a lot to do to get you ready. More than for Rose, or indeed, the wedding itself. You are not only going to be a convincing bridesmaid, you are going to be a bridesmaid in mind, body and lingerie." I went along with her. I wasn't sure if it was where I wanted to be for myself, or appear to be to gain my freedom. The wedding day was set for May. Rose would be a spring bride. Again, we were married during April. It was to be a church wedding. The vicar was not only a friend of Susan's, but, let us say, a discerning customer and wearer of the company's top range of lingerie. It wasn't technically a same-sex marriage, so he knew the wedding wouldn't upset parishioners on that basis. Kate was, legally and biologically, a man. But he was okay with 2 brides. No way could Kate present as a groom, and she didn't want to miss out on her special day as well. Susan gave the vicar a matching set of lingerie to wear under his robe as a token of her appreciation. I wasn't the only bridesmaid. Kate also had one, which makes sense as she was also a bride. Her dress was the same style as mine, but hers was light blue. I wondered if they picked pink for me. Barely pink apparently. because Rose was a woman, and blue for the other bridesmaid as Kate was a biological male. It was only after the marriage ceremony, and we gathered outside the church for the wedding photos, that we were introduced to each other by Kate. I haven't told you about the dress. It was a simple maxi dress, not floor length so my pink heels could be seen, sleeveless with a straight A-line silhouette with soft ruche detailing and a cowled neckline. The feel of the soft silk was wonderful. I had wondered if Susan and Kate would have chosen a dress that showed off my cleavage, but I don't think I was ready. Too soon. The dress was not too fussy but elegant and, if I say so myself, stunning. Lynn, this is Jackie, my bridesmaid. I took Jackie's extended hand in greeting. She works for us as a lingerie designer. I'll leave you to get to know each other. I know you have much in common, she said with a broad smile on my face. You must excuse me. I'm needed for the photos with Rose. You'll both be up next. Kate turned, lifted up the skirt of her gown, and glided over to Rose. I admired how she could walk so elegantly in such high heels across the lawn. I wasn't sure what to say. Conversing socially with a stranger as a woman was a new experience for me. Hey, she said in a rather husky voice, which surprised me as she was quite stunning, which triggered my crossdresser radar, and I could now see that she was a he, but very convincing. Very convincing to the unpracticed eye. Hi, I replied. You looked surprised, she said. You shouldn't be. My real name's Jack. Kate told me that you know that she is actually a man, so I hope you can accept me as well. I would never have known. You're very good. Thank you, she beamed. None of the guests know. Only the bridal party, including yourself, are in on my secret. So just the 5 of us. Don't worry. Your secret is safe with me. I wondered if she doesn't look like a he. She came to me naturally, knew I was also a man underneath. I won't volunteer the information, but Kate may have told her. I do know who you are, she said knowingly. You are Susan's housekeeper. I've heard good things about you. You are very good at your job, and Susan thinks you are a treasure. She is a very good boss. I think that now, despite our issues and so-called contract, which I brought upon myself, I must say you are not what I expected. Oh, tell me. In my mind's eye, I pictured a plain-looking, middle-aged spinster, a stereotype I know, even though I knew you were going to be Rose's bridesmaid and would be wearing a dress that matches mine. I hope you are not disappointed. Quite the contrary. You are a very attractive woman. I wish I was now a groom and not a bridesmaid. Everyone expects the groom and bridesmaid to hit it off. I liked Jackie. It was not what she was saying, but she was coming across as an exuberant young woman. I wondered what Jack was like. Was he as outgoing as his femme persona? Well, there are 2 brides at this wedding enjoying their marriage, so why not 2 bridesmaids? Enjoying each other's company, obviously, not in matrimony. I'm not sure why I said that. Lynn, the man I thought I had left behind, for the duration of the contract anyway, would have jumped at the chance, shall we say, to get off with such a pretty crossdresser. But as Lynn, on my first truly social occasion as her, I had been apprehensive about what would be unwelcome attention from male guests. Jackie could now unknowingly chaperone me. We both heard a shout. It was the photographer. She was ready for us. I posed for all the myriad combinations that have a bridesmaid in the picture, ending up with a series of just Jackie and I, including a sweet one of us arm in arm as if we had been girlfriends for a long time. So much for my sheltered life as a housekeeper. My image as a woman is now part of countless pictures, both official wedding photos and guests' own photos and social posts online. Actually, I quite liked the idea of the exposure. The reception was held at Susan's home. She rented a large marquee, though many guests took advantage of the garden given the fine weather. There was an intimate dance floor laid out in the marquee. Well, if I feared unwanted attention as a single woman on her own, it seems that 2 single women attracted twice as much. And of course, if those 2 single women were bridesmaids, then quadruple the attention. And quadruple the embarrassment if it was discovered that 2 bridesmaids were men dressed in fetching gowns. Both of us were constantly on the dance floor, but we were able to support each other and never let it get out of hand. Men dressed as men, don't attract me. But I discovered that being dressed as a woman, my nurtured masculine traits for social interaction, had morphed into what seemed natural for a woman. When dancing, I liked the close physical contact. Needless to say, that was as far as they got, except for the inevitable kisses on cheeks. Talking about kisses, I did receive 2 unexpected kisses on the lips. The first at the beginning of the day was a discreet kiss from Rose. We had been married after all, something I took as a further sign, along with being asked to be her bridesmaid, of her having forgiven my unfaithfulness. I do hope so. I've no desire to bed her again. She is a married woman now, but I owe so much to her. her new husband, or rather spouse, and her new mother-in-law. The second unexpected kiss was at the end of the day, and from Jackie, or perhaps it was as Jack. I noticed that Jackie's behaviour towards male guests was similar to mine. Perhaps she was using me as a female role model, or more likely she was embracing presenting and being treated as a woman, but had no sexual feeling or attraction towards men. She was most likely straight, and not gay or bi. If she thought I was a woman, then a kiss would not be unnatural for both Jack and Jackie. The resolution Kate and Rose had set off on their honeymoon, all the guests had left and the catering service had cleared everything up and departed, leaving me with nothing to do. Susan asked me to make some cocoa and join her in her study. I thought it was a little odd. She should have been tired and would have wanted to go to bed, or, if not ready for bed, perhaps asked me to join her for a nightcap in the sitting room to end the day. She was sitting behind her desk. I placed her mug of cocoa in front of her as she motioned with her arm for me to sit in the armchair in front of her. Well, Lynn, it has all gone very well and exceeded my expectations by a long mile. Yes, Susan, everybody I spoke to enjoyed the day and thought it went very well. No, dear Lynn, I didn't mean the wedding, though indeed it has been a splendid day. We can talk about it tomorrow. I meant your service contract. My contract? Yes, she smiled, Kate. Rose and I discussed your progress last week and agreed that you have been very diligent and focused on your rehabilitation, and you are now a completely different person. I looked down at my wonderful dress, knew that the womanly curves it caressed were truly mine, and chuckled to myself. I couldn't agree more. And, Susan continued, I can now, as from tonight, release you from your contract. Susan stood up and invited me to a hug. Congratulations. We knew in our hearts you would redeem yourself, but you had to prove it beyond doubt. You are now a free man, or woman, if that is your choice, no longer with any risk of going to jail. I was silent. I had been in Susan's service for so long now it was as if it was my life forever. What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? No, sorry. I just wasn't expecting it. Thank you. Neither were we at first. Our original intention was to punish you for being unfaithful and hurting us, especially Rose, who had thought of you as a loving husband. I loved her, and still do. Her love for you has rekindled, but, as you know, you are no longer her true love. I think that is obvious, as she just married Kate. Today I chuckled, and Susan joined in. Actually, we convinced ourselves that you would not be able to redeem yourself, and that your punishment would last a lifetime. We didn't expect you to take to being a female domestic as naturally as you did, and as if it wasn't a punishment. As you appeared to acquiesce, we wondered if you were putting on a show. To be honest, at first I was. I thought if I appeared willing to do what you asked, I would get my freedom back sooner than later. The experience was not unpleasant, and I found myself enjoying your company as my employer. You are kind and treated me with respect. Thank you, and the feeling is mutual. Anyway, if being a domestic didn't work out then, we were going to go for what we first thought of, and that was for you to be a cleaner in the office, where you would be subject to daily embarrassment in front of us and your former colleagues. And as you know, when we thought you had not changed, then that's what happened. To be honest, once I realised nobody had recognised me, I enjoyed my work. It was knowing that I was going to move into a bedsit alone that I wasn't looking forward to. And the clothes, as you know. Well, if you like, I can offer you an employment contract as our daytime office cleaner, in a uniform of your choice. You can still live here with me. Staff have asked if you were going to return. The offer caught me out. I wondered if it was for real and didn't respond. When we realised we had made a mistake, we had let our prejudices influence each other, we came to see that we had got you all wrong. Kate and Rose had decided to get married, and Rose, perhaps feeling guilty, wanted to ask you to give her away. Her idea was asking you as her former husband to pass her on to her new husband would be a mark of her appreciation. Kate and I argued that such a gesture may be misinterpreted, and she should ask you to be her bridesmaid. Why the bridesmaid, and not the role of the father of the bride? 2 reasons. Firstly, a bride normally asks her closest girlfriend, and during our discussion it dawned on her, as Lynn, that is who you are now. Secondly, we also felt that if you agreed and pulled it off, so to say, with sincerity, then we would deem it that you were a changed person, a person we could love, and you could be released from your contract. And that person, by being the bridesmaid, demonstrated their femininity and love for you all? Yes, being a woman, because that is who you are, was key. I get it. Giving the bride away is traditionally a male role and would not have been enough. Yes, we had concluded, rightly or wrongly, that you were a crossdresser, or a trans woman at heart but were in denial. You were blind to your true feelings. You deflected your innermost desires by associating with crossdressers, but not as one. Despite your love for Rose, you took up with Kate and later Trixie. If you couldn't recognize that you were a crossdresser, then the next best thing was to be with one. I was silent while I digested what Susan had just revealed and thought about my current feelings. She was right. Being Lynn, living and being treated as a woman, looking like a woman with my feminist body but with my tackle intact, was who I was now, and I didn't want to change a thing. I was only ever attracted to crossdressers, and women of course, never to men. And now I was a crossdresser myself and have accepted it. I was now attracted only to women and no longer crossdressers. I think you are right. I do feel at peace with myself, and I did enjoy immensely today as a regular bridesmaid. I do need time to digest and truly take it all in. I can understand. Before you decide what to do, I should let you know you have a healthy bank balance. You have been credited pay at the going rates as a domestic helper and then housekeeper, plus a bonus for your excellent work as an office cleaner for a week. In addition, you and Rose still own the house you shared, and Kate has been paying rent on her own behalf. You do not need to decide on what you're going to do just yet. I've been thinking about this day for some time now, obviously, but I wasn't expecting to have to make a final decision anytime soon. You don't. You can stay here, as my guest, until you decide what you want to do, and make the necessary arrangements. You seem to be getting on very well with Jack. Perhaps you can settle down together as partners, husband, wife, or whatever. You both appear to have embraced a cross-dressing lifestyle, as of late. You can do no wrong with Jack, provided you remain loyal this time. Completing your transition to a woman may be necessary, though. At one time, I thought I would have jumped at the chance to live with a crossdresser. It was at first what I expected I would do when my contract was completed, find a crossdresser to live with, but faithful this time. I had learnt my lesson. As time passed, I gradually accepted it would be as a crossdresser myself, as well as I became more feminine and began to enjoy the clothes instead of just accepting them. I have my own bust, which I'm reluctant to give up. It came to me. I now know how I want to live the rest of my life. Susan, I do know what I want to do if you agree. I would like to continue living here as your housekeeper, under more conventional employment conditions. She smiled, as if my response was what she was hoping. I can offer you more than that. We may be a generation apart, but I would like you to be more of a companion to me than just a housekeeper. Do you mean you think that I'm a cougar? Not that I don't find you attractive. No, not at all. I do find you attractive too. Do you have feelings for Jackie? I saw you were getting on very well with her. You were rarely apart. I like Jackie. I admit I was confused for a time when I realised she was actually a man. I thought I had buried my old feelings for crossdressers, but soon realised that I was no longer that man, and I would only wish to have a relationship with another woman. It is a pity that Jackie is not for real, if you get my meaning, but I think he could be a good mate, as Jack or Jackie, but not my girl or boyfriend. I know Jackie is straight. Today was her first social outing, dressed as a woman. Jack is one of our up-and-coming designers. Kate knew she was a crossdresser and thought he would enjoy some work experience wearing the lingerie he designs. He would have assumed you were a real woman and may have seen you as a good catch. He is straight and only dresses up occasionally. I'm sure he could have been the one if I was a real woman, I commented with mischief. Now, Lynn, the $64,000 question. Do you intend to continue to live as a woman or revert to being a man? Notwithstanding the difficulty of reverting, at best I would still be androgynous in appearance. I definitely want to continue to live my life as a woman. Today's experience as a bridesmaid has crystallized my feelings. I loved wearing the gown and how the guests saw and treated me. I felt special. Even though I wasn't the bride or the bride's mother, I grinned at her, being all dressed up and looking glamorous and the endless dancing. These experiences have helped me discover myself. You are right. I think my obsession with crossdressers is, or was, a manifestation of suppressed transvestism. I feel by morphing from a trans chaser to a full-time crossdresser, I've found my true happiness, and I considered myself redeemed, even if I say so myself. My feelings are not actually Lynn's, but Lynn's. So living here with you, if you would have me, as a single woman as if it were, but a man with the body of a woman, suits me fine. Susan grinned and then purred with satisfaction, just like a smug cougar.